service. So when he cooks or do that, clean, I'm going, honey, thank you for washing the dish.
So many times you think that the touch can only happen during the sexual act and the union between that husband and wife. But the touch could be in the small thing, many boxes. But you never know what's inside until you do what?
Open it.
Open it. All right, and then hold up this, and you'll see that there are other boxes are inside. And men, we need to be romantic. Keep it real.
Welcome everyone for another episode of Keep It Real TV. This is Brian Bartholomew, your co-host, flanked by our favorite Dr. Keith Rolle, our host, and we have a special guest in store for you. Yes, part 2, we have Dr. Marcos Masson. And if you remember, if you saw a show, one of our shows a few shows back, correct? I apologize. We had Dr. Masson on the show, and he really tantalized everyone with 4 aspects of respect. So today our title is going to be on the 4 different elements of respect. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we would not be able to make this show possible and come to you. So today's sponsor is the Excellence Network, hosted by our very own Dr. Keith Rolle. And Dr. Rolle, as you know, is a leader, an entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a trainer. Man, if you need any sort of help in terms of coaching and guidance for entrepreneurship, then definitely you want to reach out to Dr. Keith Rolle. You see his information on the screen there. But let's jump right into it, Dr. K.
Well, Brian, thank you very much for being the co-host. And you can do this anytime, and you and your wife, Angelique, you're a welcome addition to Keep It Real. Before I introduce our guest and put up his information, several on our Keep It Live last month, we had Vernon Dean. We were sponsors. Your real estate company, also Dr. Masson, Rock, was a sponsor. Royal Ambassadors was a sponsor.
Yes.
We gave away a food basket.
Yes.
And we had some celebrities out there that played for the New York Jets, as well as the Washington Redskins. They're called
San Francisco 49ers.
San Francisco's 49ers.
You know, I think most teams were represented. There are a lot of football players,
Right.
ex-football players.
And we were the sponsors of a hole-in-one. Nobody won it, but one person came.
I thought you did.
No, I did not. I didn't play. I was out there to witness. But Keep It Real TV Live, episode 73, we had several comments from Nigeria, and one person said, outstanding leadership about Vernon Dean, very humble man. He talked about being focused, disciplined, shared his life story, and also they said, thank you for the courage to keep speaking the right words over my children. There were many calls, many questions
I remember
asked,
that.
and this was from Lovett in Nigeria. And then learning the need to discipline my child regardless of where I am came from Faber, and the list goes on and on. But every now and then we like to give our listeners and viewers some of the comments, and we will be having another live here soon. But if you can put up Dr. Masson's bio, and we'll jump right into our topic for today. He is an orthopedic hand and shoulder surgeon here in Houston, board certified surgeon at the Houston Healthcare Medical Center, clinical professor, orthopedic surgery, UTHSC. He was a commander in the U.S. Navy. He's a retired veteran. One of the things I like about him, he did active duty in the Navy, but he did his reserve time in the Air Force. So go Air Force. I was Air Force, retired. So thank you, Dr. Masson, for your salute, your support, your service, as well as your sacrifice. And then if you can put it back up, there were 2 more bullets that I didn't get to that I wanted to say. He is founder of Reconstructive Orthopedic center, Rock. And he's also wearing his brand on his jacket. Numerous award recipients, husband and father. Well, welcome to Keep It Real.
Thank you.
All right. Last time I wasn't here, but I saw the show. I was out of the country over in South Africa, Dynamite, and you just tantalized the audience about the 4 types of respect. So let's just delve right into it. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about Rock and what all do you do, and therefore how you can be of service to people that in the area of orthopedics. And orthopedics is the study of bones.
So I'm an orthopedic surgeon, which is a surgeon that specializes in the musculoskeletal system, subspecializing shoulder and elbow and hand and microsurgery. And ROC stands for Reconstructive Orthopedic Center, and I've divided everything that orthopedics is into the 7S system, which is either we repair, we resect, we replace, we replant, we reconstruct. And so these are the R systems that we created, but reconstruction is the most complex because we borrow tissue from one part of the body, or an allograft, which is tissue from another body that has been sterilized, to reconstruct whatever's missing, whether it's bone, tendon, or ligament. So the Reconstructive Orthopedic Center does the most highest level cases and a lot of redo cases. So we're proud about that. And so I've been in Houston 30 years. I've been in practice by myself for 25 years. And our mission is very simple. It's entitled Affordable Healthcare Through Innovation. And that's a fact, because the only way to provide affordability is not by requesting it. It's by inventing it. And so we have an entire system of innovation that has allowed us to now begin to deliver it both medically as well as through product development. So I have an entire history of product development experience. We're launching a company called M3, opposite 3M. M3 is Masson Medical Manufacturing. And we hope that with our products, which are not Me Too, they're products that don't exist, we'll be able to bring the cost of medicine down for those that can't afford it. And currently in Houston, there's over 2 million uninsured people, and that number will continue to rise.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you mostly see athletes, or mostly just ordinary people?
So, to me, athletes are ordinary people that are essentially injured, and their injuries are different because athletes are younger, and athletes' tissues heal faster and better. And all the procedures that are done in athletes we can do, but also these are procedures that we do in everyone. The key is understanding the patient profile in order to understand the physiology of healing, the complexity of the particular injury that presents, and what is the best way to treat it. See, unfortunately, a lot of people, including insurance companies, believe that patients are nails and the doctors should be hammers.
Oh, wow.
That's not good.
Let me ask you this. Right before we're back in school session now, do you do a lot of physicals for students?
Well, yeah, I did approximately just under 100 HISD physicals for students. And I was told that I was more complete because I do everything, including exam of the genitals of young men. Why? Because it's the #1 cancer in young people. So we want to make sure we do the entire physical. And we were efficiently able to do 100 physicals, I think, in 4 hours. And you do that only through organizational structure.
Wow. So now let's get right into our topic, the 4 types of respect. Go ahead and name them. My grandmother always said, manners and respect will carry you far in life. And therefore, let's name them, and then we'll have a dialogue among the 3 of us.
So I will tell you that there are 4 types of respect, but the most important thing is understanding that without respect, there are no relationships, and without respect, you don't have emotional IQ. And so respect is one of the 3 elements of emotional IQ, and then I break down respect into 4 types. The most important respect is self-respect, and self-respect allows you to achieve beyond what anybody believes in. And so you have to look at your capacity, be realistic, understand it, respect yourself, and then give it all you got, because there's only one way to go, and that's the way that you choose. No one can force you.
Okay, can we say that respect is synonymous with a person's character?
Part of character is respect, and character is what allows you to choose the right thing in spite of, it's almost like integrity, with no one looking and with no biased reimbursement for whatever you do. That's your character. Character is consistency in a high level person. And so respect is part of your character.
And also, the other part of character is a person's reputation. So character is your identity, who you are, but the reputation is what other people feel about you,
Yes.
or say about you.
Yes.
So differentiate between the two when it comes to respect.
So, respect, this is why self-respect, the first type of respect, is the most important. People's perception of reality, there's approximately 5 different ways to disagree with people. And that's when you're talking about category, we're talking about perspective, you're talking about definition, you're talking about capacity, and so on and so forth. So if they have an opinion, everyone's entitled to their opinion. They're not entitled to the facts. And there's only 4 ways to get at the facts. And I'm a scientist, so I can tell you briefly what those 4 ways are. Number 1 is trend analysis and correlation through statistical methods. Number 2 is primary source verification, 360 degrees. And this is where perspective is important, because that's the parable of the blind men and the Indians, feeling the elephant from the tail or the tusks. And your perspective is important there. The third type is called authentication, and that's validation through a test that's been approved in society and agreed upon, that it measures what we contend that it measures. And the last way of getting at the truth is called the experimental method through the scientific design. And this is where boundary conditions are actually set for an experiment, so you cannot extrapolate beyond that when you're having a conclusion. And boundary conditions is the type of respect that we have with our children. You can do anything you want, but if you step out of these boundaries, then you're going to see me as a parent and not your friend. So those are important parameters.
All right, it has been said, unless you want to say something, Brian.
No, actually, I think very well said. That's profound information, and I'm sure our audience could really appreciate that and digest that.
All right, we talked about character, we talked about reputation, and then also respect is about honoring a person.
Yes.
And therefore, Martin Luther King said everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love. And so many times, people that may be in a service industry, they may be a janitor, they're looked down upon, but that person has dignity and they need to be respected. And so honor is very important. And then also leadership. If we cannot lead ourselves, we cannot lead others.
Point.
And so how can a person respect themselves when it comes to discipline and that self-leadership in order to win the respect of someone else? I used to be a substitute teacher in charter schools, and I had such great success with some of these marginalized students because I called them Mr. Joe or Mr. Smith or Miss So-and-so, and boy, they just, hi, he's calling me this, and it just really did something to them. So talk about that for a minute, about that self-leadership when it comes to respect, and then you can go into the second one.
So leadership really means that someone's willing to follow you. That's it. And leadership is one that can take the environmental condition, understand it, and act appropriately. So to me, leadership is in all of us, and it's those people that act when needed that's important. And if you're selfless, then selfless leadership is the 5th level of leadership. There's actually 5 levels. And so the 5th level is the leadership that's selfless, that he does it for the group and the organization and not because something you're going to receive in return. So that's the highest level of leadership.
And that's what Martin Luther King was talking about, that everybody can be great because everybody can serve.
Correct.
And respect means to also serve.
Right.
All right, so what's the second type of...
So to continue that thought, I will make my 4th the second type. So
Okay.
the second type, or now the 4th type, would be humanitarian respect.
humanitarian?
And so humanitarian respect is respect for those that have less than you, less intelligence, less money, less education, but they're valued because they're human beings. And that respect should never be taken away. And that's where the whole foundation of democracy is built. It's actually humanitarian respect, that you have a right to breathe this air. You have a right to choose your president. You have a right to be a human being, you know. And as Martin Luther King said, you know, you shouldn't be judged by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character.
Wow.
So I agree, and I live that.
Okay, that's very good.
Yeah.
It's been said by General Dwight Eisenhower, who was also a president, I think, after Truman, leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. And so if a leader is not respected, is it difficult for followers to do whatever that task is? A good example is in the military. The type of hierarchy there and the autocratic, it could be autocratic, whereas we have to follow orders. And so explain that when it comes to leadership and that respect. Oftentimes a leader may not have a good reputation, good character, but because of that rank or because of the authoritarian style of leadership, that follower has no choice but to follow, but they may not necessarily respect that person.
So to respect someone is one thing. To respect the hierarchy with which you've accepted as a responsibility is different. So if you're in the military, it's like sometimes maybe you don't respect a president, but the presidency you respect.
The office of the presidency.
Office of the presidency. Right. And so you have an obligation and a responsibility as a military person to follow that.
Commander.
Right. In the organization, you may not agree, but many times respect is necessary and following orders is necessary unless it violates humanitarian principles. And so I always follow it, and I tell my people to follow it because having more than 800 employees in my past, I can tell you that not everyone has a global picture of the entire organizational system. And so they may not agree, but they might not know all the facts. They may not know all the criteria with which an action or an order is being made. And so to just say, well, I don't agree with that, is not necessarily correct, especially if you've accepted a position to proceed with it. And so I can give you examples if you like.
Well, all right, you can give one.
I'll give you one. So I had nurses that are trained to give IVs and this and that. And I had some nurses that refused to do what we call a beer block. I'm a physician, I can do a beer block, and they refused because they thought this and that. And I said, oh, it's okay, I understand, and I fired them. It was very simple.
Wow.
So, you know, you have to know, number one, you have the training, you have the skills, the patient needed it, anesthesiologist is not available, but I'm trained in beer blocks, I'm a physician, I take full responsibility, you're being ordered, you're not going to take the heat. I will if there's a problem, and I've only done about 1,000 of them. I think you should follow orders.
Right. Well, in the military now, it says to follow lawful orders.
Correct.
Where there isn't a violation
Correct.
of the oath in which we raise our hand,
Correct.
as well as the Constitution.
That is correct.
All right. It's been said, it's an African proverb, when two elephants fights, the one that suffers the most is the grass. Now, you talked about self-respect, humanitarian, so what's the third?
So the third is called a peer respect.
A peer.
Peer respect is the respect that we agree to disagree and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have this fight and you can't grow because there's subjective discrepancies that cannot be measured and it cannot be solved, then you find a way to compromise and move on. And that's unfortunately where a lot of people don't understand that the good of the whole requires compromise and then peer respect, meaning we can agree to disagree, but let's take care of the mission.
I like to use the word cooperation.
Sure.
So many times people feel when I compromise my perspective or my position on something, it can turn into a win-lose.
Yeah,
But-
or right or wrong.
Right,
That's exactly
right.
what I was thinking.
Right.
Many people are thinking when someone feels, right or someone feels wrong, that creates a
tension.
Tension.
And the fight like
yeah,
the
that's
animal.
where the fight, and you're
like
in a
the elephants
standoff.
I was talking about.
Exactly.
When
But-
two elephants fight, the one that suffers most is the grass.
course.
Right.
And so if we don't cooperate or compromise, and that doesn't mean you have to compromise your values
Right.
or your position. Now, I used to work at a hospital when I first got out of seminary, and I was a manager, and we have HR procedures and policies as to taking off, and they wanted me to violate it, and I refused. I stood my ground. And therefore, the nursing director fired me.
Yeah.
But so many people, they admired me because you
You're
didn't
right.
compromise. You were right, and they were wrong. These nurses were already making. Not that we're picking on nurses now, because Lady Joy is a nurse, and I don't want you to lock me out of the bedroom. No, she won't do that. But so many times we have that.
That's
And-
called character, by
that's
the way.
that's called character.
Yeah.
And therefore, you got to be willing to fall on your sword
Right.
and stand up for you, what you believe in, no matter what the consequences are.
So I'll give you an example that you'll like. During COVID, there was a lot of people that the government said don't do surgery. And they didn't understand in the ruling, because I read the ruling, that only do emergencies, that in urgent case and chronic severe pain are emergencies. And so I kept doing surgeries, and someone jealous reported me to the government. And so I went to the orthopedic board, and I said, well, I did follow the rules. Do you not know the rules? And the rules are emergencies, but what is an emergency when you have an urgent case not treated for more than 3 weeks?
Wow.
It becomes an emergency. And in fact, I copyrighted something called the Orthopedic Golden Week. If you have a break in your knee, if you don't get to it within 2 weeks, the results aren't the same. So I
That's
clarified
true,
it to them, and they agreed with me and apologized.
You stood your ground. All right, the fourth type of respect. So we got self-respect,
Self.
humanitarian, and peer. And therefore, I wanted to say, too, in a marriage, so many times one spouse feel like they are always making the concession.
Compromise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so speak to that in a marriage relationship, whereas, because this show is about success in life, marriage, family, and relationship. And then in a marriage relationship, oftentimes it's the wife that feels, especially in the military, when that spouse may have a career, that female spouse, a profession, but she has to make so many sacrifices on behalf of that male officer or that male enlisted person. So how can we get that respect there in a marriage relationship, and then talk very briefly about the other?
So I came up with something called a soulmate chart.
Okay.
So it talks about that.
Boy, you are a wealth of
Systems and
systems
processes.
and processes.
Right. So the soulmate chart is when you first meet someone and you're attracted to them, either mentally, physically, emotionally, you respect them, you look up to them, you date them, then you don't want anyone else to have them. You come to the commitment line. That's the second stage. The commitment line is when you choose to get married. You make your vows. And the commitment line, quite honestly, is when the hard part starts in a relationship. And that's the area where people go into a divorce. And there are a lot of qualities that you need in order to survive that. And number one is respect.
Respect.
Right,
Number two is compromise.
right.
Number 3 is forgiveness.
Mm.
Number 4 is the ability to work at it, because it doesn't come without work.
That's true.
And
That's so
number
true.
5 is really knowing that you made a commitment and your character allows you to stick with it during the hard times.
All right.
So,
It would never have enough time, so very quickly give us the fourth type of respect.
yeah, and the fourth one's very simple. The fourth type is upper level respect. That's when people know more, and this is where kids have a problem, when they think they know more than their parents, when they haven't suffered difficult decisions, or the government, or people who are, you're like in the military. So that's the fourth type of respect. Well, I call it upper level respect.
Okay.
Yeah.
It has been said children live what they learn, and this is very important with respect. If a child lives with hostility, he learns violence. If a child lives with ridicule, he learns to be shy. If a child lives with shame, he learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns confidence. If a child lives with praise, he learns to appreciate. If a child lives with fairness, he learns justice. If a child lives with security, he learns faith. If a child lives with approval, he learns to like himself. And that's really like they can respect themselves, self-respect. If a child lives with acceptance and friendship, he learns to love the world. And this is by Dorothy Law Norton. Give us a 1 minute about a child. Since we're back in school, we see a lot of bullying and we want our children to be safe. So give us a 1 minute message as we close on self-respect to our children.
So that list talks about really Eric Erickson and the 8 stages of childhood development. And it includes love, support, guidance, being a mentor, and they go through the different stages. But the most important thing is to guide and to lead your children with love, with support, with patience, and then you watch them grow. Ultimately, your goal as a parent is to give them the opportunity to decide for themselves, because you won't always be there. So that's why you want to have them make mistakes. You can't hover too much, but you hover enough that they don't get hurt. And so that's really my message as a parent. You know, love is allowing them to become independent of you. It may not be fun, but that's how I feel.
All right, let's put up Dr. Masson's contact information, and you can contact him. We're waiting for our engineer, www.rockmd.com. And I like that picture.
Thank you.
And so we want to thank you for your service. We want to thank you. Wait for her to take it down for being a guest on
Thank you.
Keepitreal TV. Well, until next week, we don't know if we'll do live, but we know Sister Joy will be back. So, Brian, we want to thank you for bringing Dr. Masson to Keep It Real, and he said we need to do a part 3, and maybe we can have you on a live show in the future. Well, we were going to show some pictures of the golf tournament, but we'll maybe show that next week, but we just really wanted to get into that. And so I want to close with this: never sacrifice integrity for growth. And you do not choose your family. You're God's gift to them, and they're God's gift to you. So it's about respect. And family is where life begins, but love never ends. And therefore, Napoleon Hill says, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can receive. So have that self-respect, humanitarian respect, pure respect, and that upper level of respect, and you will win all the time. So let's look at the TV, and on the count of 3, we want to tell everybody to keep it real. 1, 2, 3. Keep it real.